Whenever I post a new PC build video here on the channel, the comments usually erupt into ferocious debate about which part choices I got right, which I got wrong, and how people would do things differently. And I'm not gonna lie, I kind of love it. But it got me thinking, what are you guys most commonly buying? And in my opinion, are you buying the right CPUs, GPUs, cases, power supplies, and everything in between? Well, in this video, I'm going to be answering just that by ranking Newegg's best-selling PC components by category from best to worst. I have a feeling this one could get a bit controversial. The Cooler Master GM34CWQ2 is a 34-inch ultra-wide gaming monitor set on a 1500R curve with a sharp 3440 by 1440 resolution. The quantum dot panel is rich and vibrant, while the stock 165Hz refresh rate can be overclocked up to 180Hz for extra performance. AMD FreeSync Premium support, a 0.5 millisecond response time, and 4000:1 contrast ratio make this monitor both practical and a panel that looks the part. Learn more at the first links in the description below. I'm going to be using Newegg to explore the most commonly sold PC components. Now, they haven't sponsored this video, but it's obviously an incredibly popular site for people buying PC parts and should be pretty representative of what people are actually buying. Now, what better place to start than with CPUs? Now, in many ways, it's quite pleasing to see the 7800X3D top the sales charts. It tops a lot of our performance graphs and is easily the fastest CPU for gaming-only applications out right now. It's perhaps no surprise to see the i7 in second place. In our multi-core graphs, you can see the 14700K pulls a significant lead over the 7800X3D, given that additionally to those 8 performance cores, it's got 12 efficiency cores, something our Ryzen chip just does not have. I must admit, I'm slightly surprised to see the top 2 options are on the higher end of the market, although the 7800X3D is coming down so much in price right now. You can get another $18 off. That'd take it to closer to $350. Pretty amazing when you consider that Ryzen 5 chips under the 7000 lineup were getting close to that $300 mark when they first launched. Amazing value. It isn't perhaps surprising though to see the 7600X, AMD's Ryzen 5, coming in third place. The i9-14900K, that is a bit of a surprise in fourth, a very expensive CPU to sell quite so well, while Intel's couple of generations old 12700K lies in fifth, mainly because of its amazing value proposition. The 12700K is using the same fundamental architecture as even like the 14700K. You gain more efficiency cores on the 14700K and you do see changes to clock speeds as well. But given that this 12700K is in at $277 with another $53 off via a promo code is perhaps no surprise. What's more interesting though, when looking at these top sellers, is that Intel still just about cling on when it comes to market share in these top 10 parts. You can see here they've got 6 of the top 10 CPUs, but AMD pull more of a lead when we scroll down the list towards the more budget end, with historically great value chips like the 5800X3D, the Ryzen 5 7600 Non-X, occupying lots of those places. And with the discontinuation of LGA 1700, when we see Intel's 15th gen, it's perhaps no surprise people are sticking with Ryzen given the future-proofing, kinda hate to use that word, of the Ryzen 7000 architecture and all the motherboards that come with it. What I am gonna do is try and add the most popular part from each category to the basket and see if at the end, just for fun, we have a build that is actually capable of being assembled. Who knows? Would you like to see me build it? Let me know in the comments down below. So that's the most popular CPU. What about the most popular memory kits out there? Now, memory's also interesting, right? Because we've seen a transition from DDR4 to DDR5, and you can see that is represented in the top selling kits. And I've got to say, I am kind of surprised to see G.Skill with so many of the best selling options. You can see here they've got a 32 gig 6400 megahertz kit ranking top. It's a CL36 kit, so guys, really CL32 would be better, but not a bad kit of memory at all, and fairly reasonably priced at $117 give or take, with a $112 kit coming in that is CL32. Now, it should be noted these bestseller lists are obviously not like this week's bestsellers, it's a much longer time duration, so what we're seeing is these cheaper, lower latency kits come in, is them take much more market share. What was particularly interesting to me though is just how many kits G.Skill have got within this top 20, whether it be their more budget-oriented Flare lineup or yet another variant of their Trident Z5, this time a 64 gig kit. You can see of the top 10 options, G.Skill have got 6, which is insane. Obviously, Corsair coming in with their DDR4. This is coming down a lot in price, down to $80 for a 32 gig kit. And of course, you've got Corsair Vengeance at $110, another unsurprisingly popular kit of memory. So carrying on with our trend, do I think so far that you guys are buying the right stuff? Absolutely. The RAM and CPUs so far that we've looked at are certainly 2 of the best options in their categories without too much debate. Motherboards is going to be interesting, so let's see where where we land here. Now, this is where things do seem to change a bit. We've got a lot of AMD motherboards in our top 10. You can see Asus's B650, quite a high-end B650 board, the top seller. Now, this is interesting because it's not AMD's top-end chipset. In fact, of the 10 most popular motherboards available, AMD have just one X670E board that supports PCI Gen 5 for SSDs and GPUs, and one X670 non-E board. By comparison, there's a staggering 5 B650 boards in the top 10 alone. Now, obviously, the major difference between AMD and Intel is that B650, despite being the lower-end chipset, still supports overclocking. On Intel, you have to buy the top-end board to overclock your CPU. And remember that 7800X3D we talked about earlier? You can't really overclock that anyway. So overclocking's becoming, it seems, less of a driver for people buying motherboards. This Strix board looks really nice. I can see why it's popular. It's got a good I/O, Wi-Fi 6E, and good upgrade paths, right? With this being AM5, AMD is saying they're going to support this socket for at least 2, 3, maybe even 4 different generations of CPUs. Certainly Ryzen 8 and 9000, giving us loads of options when it comes to keeping the board for the long run. Cheaper B650 boards like this one from MSI and this one from ASRock also come in. Again, interesting to see components with white accents becoming more and more popular. Wouldn't have seen that a few years ago. And ASRock, as you'll see later with GPUs, not to spoil anything, are becoming more and more popular. Do I approve of this motherboard? I absolutely do. These are great components so far. Next up though is of course graphics cards. And I think this is where it's gonna get a bit interesting. So straight away, Nvidia are still holding that top place with the 3060. Obviously this is over a longer time frame, so we'll look at some more shorter time frame data in a moment. But it's no surprise for me to see this at the top. Why? The 4060 was reviewed so poorly and obviously has less VRAM than the 3060 that I know lots of people are opting for this card instead. Now to be clear, $309 is in my opinion a lot of money for a card that gets outpaced by plenty of other options. The 4060, while having less VRAM, is cheaper and faster, while AMD's RX 7600, again less VRAM and less memory bandwidth, is considerably quicker for about $50 less. In second place is the RTX 4070. Again, that kind of makes sense. The 4070 is Nvidia's most popular 40 series card, at least from our understanding, and is an area that, remember, AMD were quite late to the party to in terms of 7800 XT and then their latest updated 7900 GRE2. So at this $500-ish price bracket, Nvidia have had a little bit of a run of it over AMD. The 4070 Super already jumping to number 3. This is one of the MSRP boards from Asus, the dual cooler. Good cooler, 4070 Super's pretty cool running graphics card. Again, another 3060, and then AMD's 6600, a card we still see touted as one of the best value budget GPUs. But move through into the second half of the top 10, and this is where things start to get actually really interesting. The 7900 XT comes into play. We'll come back to that in a moment. While again, you get another 3060, the 4060, and a 4080 as well. Nvidia then, whatever people say, continuing to sell considerably more GPUs than AMD. And you see this in things like the Steam hardware survey, Nvidia's financial results. Despite some of the controversies around 4000, they're still selling in the bucket loads. The 4080 obviously is becoming more available. The advent of the 4080 Super is probably going to push that out of whack, while the 4070 Ti Super has also proved surprisingly popular, probably because it delivers good performance and has the extra video memory. What we can do though is look at the GPU search results page and sort by best selling for perhaps results that are more oriented around sales over the last few weeks rather than the last few months or years. Now the 7900 XT here, with all of its price drops, is unsurprisingly surging, and I would expect to see this rise in our overall bestsellers list into that top 5 pretty soon. You can also see the 6600 still selling well and the 4080 Super coming into contention quickly. I don't think Nvidia's Super GPUs are at all bad. Yes, AMD is going to give you a bit more value for money on rasterization, but those Super cards have done what Nvidia intended, like it or not, which is to regain more of that market share from AMD. Now, I said at the beginning of the video, I was going to add in the most popular GPU, and I could add the 3060 in, but looking at some of that more up-to-date data, and the 3060s are certainly not selling in the volume that they perhaps once were. So I'm going to cheat slightly. I'm going to add the 4070 in instead, as I think that's a more realistic, popular top-end card, just for our fun build at the end. Next up, we need to find a case for our build. And again, this is where things are kind of surprising me a little bit. Obviously, you've got things like Fractal's Design Focus G that have just for a long time been a top seller for super budget builds. And while I wouldn't exactly recommend them, I can kind of see why. Corsair's 4000D, again, still selling strong. I mean, look, over 1,200 reviews on Newegg alone. That's not even taking into account Amazon or eBay or other retailers that are region specific. And at $89, $99, you can see how competitive Corsair are getting with some of their chassis. NZXT's H9 Float a real winner. It was criticised when it first got released by lots of people for being not a rip-off, but a chassis that took inspiration from Lian Li's Fish Tanko 11 series, but they've got two in the top 10 list. The H9 Float in white and the H9 Float in black. Very interesting to see. Fractal's design North case, obviously incredibly popular, sold out when it first landed. No surprise to see that in not only the top 10, but the top 5. While Lian Li's Lancool 216, the latest RX version, again, understand why that's there. Great for airflow, pretty affordable. Montec Air 100, another great case for the budget buyer, while Fantech's MV5 and the O11D Evo Envision, again, two interesting entries in the list. Whether you like it or not, these dual chamber PC cases are really becoming more and more popular. That fish tank aesthetic going mainstream, baby. I did say though, we're going to add the top most popular case in, and at $89, I think the Corsair 4000D Airflow is basically the best bet. But let's add that in and just see at the end how this build is going to fare up. That brings us nicely onto power supplies. And do you see what I mean when I said Corsair were kind of dominating right now? Position 1, position 2, position 3, 4, 6, 7, and 10, and 8. Oh my word. They have everyone in the top 10 apart from 2. Unbelievable. And you can see why. Not only are Corsair PSUs highly efficient, highly reliable, they're also great value right now. 750 watt for 99. That's beating out other competitor units like Cooler Masters designs, for example. You're seeing again the 850 for another $20, the 1000 for $20 more than that. They've even got a 1200 watt unit for 169. Other brands like Thermaltake commonly be seen charging $250 for those 1300 watt units. The 750E makes total sense too. It's 80 plus gold, meaning it's pretty efficient, and crucially, it's ATX3 and PCI Gen 5. That means you get the new power efficiency standards of ATX3 and that up-to-date PCI Gen 5 power cable. It's great to see units like this being so popular because for $99, you would struggle to find anything better. And this is the reason I wanted to configure the build, because I have a feeling at the end it's probably going to be actually kind of amazing. We are, however, missing one or two components still. We haven't yet looked at SSDs, and I am kind of interested to see what happens here. Again, it's not necessarily the cheapest, best value products that are winning. It's also about that quality. The SN850X is a great example. That is the best value Gen 4 NVMe in my opinion for top-end performance. Samsung do charge you the Samsung tax, if we want to call it that, and you can see that here. An extra $20 for basically the same performance in terms of read and writes across both drives. The 980 also selling well, no surprise there, as well as the smaller 1TB SN850X. Even Samsung with their budget 970 Evo Plus, a Gen 3 drive I just would not buy, still holding strong. I imagine this is more people who are upgrading existing systems where they haven't got the Gen 4 capability. Any of these top 8 drives are going to be absolutely spot on. I totally understand why these are in the top 10, and they're all drives that I could stand behind with my recommendation. Now I think we're just missing a CPU cooler. Let's head back, go into the PC cooling section, and have a look at the best performing coolers when it comes to sales. Obviously we're going to have to ignore positions 1, 2, and 3, but Deepcool's AK620, the best selling cooler on Newegg right now, and the LT720 also from Deepcool right up there. And I've got to say, not that I'm happy for Deepcool, because you want the best performing, best value product to be the top performer, but we've tested both of these, recommended both a lot, and think they're fantastic options. I mean, the LT720 with the $20 code is down to $119. That's more expensive than we've seen it. We've seen it down to $100, and I can see why it's selling at that price point. Same with the AK620, $55, pretty extraordinary. Corsair's H100X line, which is their more budget-oriented options with and without the RGB and 240 and 360. Again, this 360 feels quite expensive to me, and you can see why Deepcool here, for a similar like-for-like cooler that probably performs slightly better, are selling more highly. While Be Quiet's Pure Rock 2, it's also no surprise to see that's only $35 with the promo code. And Deepcool again take another spot with their AK620, but the Zero Dark version. The resurgence from Deepcool recently is incredible. I remember featuring one of their old coolers with the exposed light pipe on the top years ago when they were super niche, only really sold on Amazon. It's amazing to see how far that rollout has gone. Moving down the line, Corsair again dominating, even with an expensive liquid cooler with that screen on. I think it's a good cooler, but obviously not on the cheap end. NZXT's Kraken Elite, even more expensive again, that's performing well. While Deepcool take another spot at 13, and Cooler Master only appear when we get to spot number 14. Compare this to years ago, and you'd have seen a far higher concentration of Cooler Master units within this top 10. Maybe they're on a bit of a comeback, who knows? We'll have to keep our eyes out and see. Let's go ahead though and add the AK620 to our basket. With that all done, we should have ourselves a pretty pretty incredible build for around about $1,600. The best-selling case, Corsair's 4000D Airflow. Great choice. Perhaps a little long in the tooth, would be nice to see RGB fans, but still not a bad option. The Strix B658, another top option. 4070, I mean, you can't really knock it. I would recommend considering the 7800 XT instead, and I've said that in a lot of my videos. But if you want ray tracing and you want DLSS, I understand why you would go for Nvidia. Corsair's RM750E, great option, can highly recommend. Same with the 7800 X3D, same with WD's Black SN850X, same with G-Skill's Trident Z5 RGB, same with Deepcool's AK620. You know what, guys? Fair play. The best-selling stuff on Newegg is actually the stuff you should buy. Just maybe not the 3060, especially if you're buying a 7800 X3D. What do you think of this video? A bit of fun, obviously. Few disclaimers. This is not a definitive guide of what brands have got the highest market share. And obviously, we're only looking at one retailer. But would you like to see me build the most popular parts on Newegg into a system and see how it performs? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this one, get subscribed. Thanks for watching. And as always, we'll see you in the next one.